Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Madness, madness, they call it madness. Madness, madness, they call it madness.
Christopher is in Cannock in the West Midlands. Christopher, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Basically, my family have been in manufacturing for the best part of 350 years, dealing in every industry from the leather trade to the automotive, everything, believe it or not, from bondage gear to aircraft windows, OK? Now, I understand the European Union want to protect certain trades. So they protect wine producers in France, which, OK, fine, it protects those jobs. Great, OK? The leather trade in Walsall in the West Midlands used to employ thousands of people, yeah? Nobody ever protected their jobs, OK? Then you've got the automotive industry. Now, you're going to say that in the European Union, we can protect the jobs and everything else. Well, the reality of it is, in the Czech Republic, the average wage over there for somebody working in the manufacturing industry, I believe, is about 12,000, whereas over here, it's 20,000. So Johnson Control, British Airbags International, all the big Lear Corporation, all these companies, up sticks from the UK, take them to another European Union country and start manufacturing there.
You have a few.
On the lower wage.
You have a few examples of that, of course, and equally.
No, well, okay.
Why did Nissan open in Sunderland then?
Because they get huge grants from the UK. Right?
No,
now,
come on, Christopher. Don't insult your own intelligence. Why did Nissan open in Sunderland?
I used to employ 125 people.
I'm very proud of you, but just answer the question. If it's as simple as saying wages are lower in Czechoslovakia, why were Honda in Swindon and why were Nissan in Sunderland?
Would you like me to finish?
I'd love you to answer my question. Yeah.
I don't know those exact.
Well, let's have a think then.
Okay,
let's come up with a theory. Let's come up with a theory. No, it's yours. This is your answers to my questions. That's how it works. So why is Nissan in Sunderland?
Because they get huge grants, and they also.
No, but you don't. That's not true, is it?
Do you know what?
And if they get huge grants, Christopher, if they get huge grants, let's pretend that's true what you just said. It might be,
do you know what?
but that would cancel out the wage imbalance with the Czech Republic manufacturing plants, wouldn't it?
You're just picking one thing. Now let's take farmers, for instance.
I'm picking the thing you said. You said automotive industry, didn't you? I didn't imagine that. And then you said the Czech Republic, yeah? Right? I didn't imagine that. And then you said that's why they all moved there. So I said, why is this company in Sunderland? And you said something about massive grants. And I said, well, if that was true, that would cancel out your point about the wage imbalance, wouldn't it? Can we at least agree on recent history of this own conversation?
I
just want to establish that we can agree that's what's just happened in this conversation.
Can I say something, right? You wonder why people vote Brexit. It's because people don't want to listen to the story.
I completely agree. They just want to say stuff that's not true live on the radio and then go off with their kind of head in the clouds. So let's try again. Why is Nissan in Sunderland?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what is true.
You need to know, because you're so certain of your own position that you need to. Otherwise, you're going to go away proving the point you just made. People vote Brexit because they don't understand things and they hate having it pointed out.
No. But you're pushing one little point.
No, you mentioned the automotive industry. You did, and you mentioned wages in Czech.
I was going to mention farming, but you wouldn't let me finish.
Because your first point's fallen apart. Once we agree on that, we can move on to your next one.
You're talking absolute rubbish, James. I'm sorry.
All right. So why is Nissan in Sunderland?
I don't know about Nissan.
All right. Well, let's move on. Let's agree to move on. So we'll leave the automotive industry out of it.
Okay,
I don't know enough about the leather industry, so we'll leave that out. I certainly don't know enough about bondage. So let me just play you what the economist that the ERG and the hard Brexiters love the most said about agriculture. This is Patrick Minford a few years ago at a House of Commons Select Committee, and then we'll move on to what you think.
Well, I think that it's perfectly true that if you remove protection of the sort that has been given in particular to the car industry and to other manufacturing industries inside the protective wall, you have got you're going to have a change in the situation facing that industry, and you are going to have to run it down. And it will be in your interest to do it, just in the same way that we ran down the coal industry and the steel industry. These things happen.
I got to be honest with you, mate, I didn't even know he mentioned the car industry in that clip. I'd forgotten. So the EU membership, under that analysis, has protected the car industry. So now talk to me about farming.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm not a farmer and I'm not going to claim to be a farmer.
But you did just say, let's talk about agriculture, right?
Okay. Right.
I didn't imagine that, like I imagined the stuff about the automotive industry.
I'm a layman, right?
Well, no, because when you came on, you were a manufacturer with 350 years of experience. How have you gone from that to a layman who doesn't know anything in the space of 6 minutes?
Well, to be honest, I must know a fair bit, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Why? How did you arrive at that conclusion, Christopher?
I don't know.
What makes you think that you know a lot?
You know what? You want people to ring up and put their point of view.
No. I don't want them to put their point of view. I want them to bring facts to the programme.
The whole point is, the UK is one of the highest labour rates in the world, I would have thought, for wages. Okay? So we have to pick niches.
We're talking about farming now, you said.
Yeah, okay. Where are we going to excel in the UK? We're never going to grow the cheapest bananas. We can't grow bananas. What we could do is we can do free range. People my wife, for instance,
free range bananas.
She chooses to go and buy free range food. She wants food grown in the UK. She doesn't want it in Brazil. Why do we want to ship it all the way around the world? We're going on about. So we bring products in from China.
Because the people selling bananas or fruit and vegetables to your wife who deliberately buys British sustain their business models by also selling fruit and vegetables to people who don't care where it comes from. They shop according to price. And if we leave the European Union without any trade agreements in place, either...
Well, that's my point. And if we're going to buy purely
how
on
can it
price,
be your point? Because it wipes out the British
the point
producer.
Is, the European Union only chooses to protect certain industries.
No, it protects all manufacturing and agriculture. Mate, you started with the automotive industry and it fell apart so quickly.
It's rubbish. It's
because leather...
The leather industry in the UK, in Warsaw, has completely gone.
You might as well talk about lace in Nottingham. I mean, it just...
You may do, but you're going on about the jobs in the automotive industry, right? That in reality, those jobs are already going to Czech Republic. Most of them are already gone.
But we've just said that's not true. I said, what about Nissan in Sunderland? And you pretended it hadn't happened.
What about
Christopher? This is pointless. This is pointless every time you say something. I show you that
all the other industries that have already gone in the UK. They only choose to protect certain industries. The point is, if we leave and the UK is on its own, the UK can choose, right, we need to protect steel.
I'm late for the news. We need to protect steel. You just heard the ERG's pocket economy.
Okay, James. It's nice speaking to you. I'll let you go to your news. Okay.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thomas Watts is here with the headlines. I don't want to dance on anybody's grave, but that is it, really, isn't it? That is the crux of the issue. Poor old Christopher saying, you ask people to ring in with their own points of view. I said, I don't. I describe what I think is reality. I would love to be removed from that perception. I'd love to have an understanding of so-called WTO terms that doesn't entail what Patrick Minford would describe as the essential destruction of manufacturing and agriculture. And then you ring in, you say some stuff about the Czech Republic, you get asked about the Nissan plant in Sunderland, your own point falls apart and you're still angry and still banging on about leather. Where in the European Union has the leather industry? It's been farmed out precisely to the corners of the world where there are no wage protections and there are no health and safety legislations. And also, of course, I'm sure you know this, Christopher, with your 350 years in the industry, saddles aren't quite the market that they were during Warsaw's heyday, in the same way that lace doesn't sell on anything like the scale it did when it was a staple of Nottingham's economy. You know? And what am I doing here? Wondering how on earth you end up on national radio claiming that economic harm is worth it because of free-range bananas that are going to get, I don't know, grown in the Vale of Lichfield. Mark's in Caterham. Mark, what do you like about it?
Well, I prefer WTO deal.
There's no such thing as a WTO deal.
Why not? Why? Where am I going wrong? Well, WTO is a deal.
No, it's not a deal. It's what happens if there isn't any deal.
No, you're trying to be obnoxious. It's a deal.
Well,
it's not a no deal.
So who
it's
signs
a deal.
it then?
WTO is a deal, James.
Who signs it? Who signs it?
The British public sign it.
Well, all of them.
One vote, one person. It breaks the
what about the
European
other half?
monopoly.
Who else signs it? Who else signs it?
The general public
No,
signed
but with
it at
who?
the
It's a
ballot
deal
box.
with who? Between the British public and who else?
With the rest of the world. WTO
So they
gives
sign it as well?
British the platform to trade with the rest of the world, including the European Union, who are bound
So why is
to
no one
trade.
else doing it?
They can if they want to.
Why don't they want to?
They haven't voted yet to decide. Maybe if you give France a referendum and they decide to go World
So
Trade
no
Organisation...
country on the
then-
planet trades on WTO
Yeah,
terms.
but what's the
Why
benefits? Let's get back to the benefits of why it's beneficial to trade on WTO when it comes to engaging with the European Union. Juncker's going to be replaced, and yet one person, one vote, hasn't got the capacity to vote for the commissioner. Is that not true?
We're talking about WTO terms. I don't understand where you think you've gone, mate.
No, you're trying to...
So how is being on
off the
WTO...
subject.
No, I'm not. The conversation is about how anyone could possibly be in favour of something which all
Because
analysis...
it gives the British public back
Go on.
the power to relinquish the price fixing that the European magnates are monopolising the British economy by.
Right. How does that work?
Wages, wage constructions by the supermarkets.
Which supermarket?
All of the supermarkets, and that's not limited to food produce. That could be a car supermarket example.
A car supermarket?
Yeah, i.e. Nissan. How many Nissan employees receive family tax credit at the cost of the general public purse?
I don't know how many.
Nissan
Tell me.
is in profit, so that means Nissan shareholders...
I don't know. I'm answer the question. I don't know. I'm admitting I don't know.
You haven't listened to what I'm stating.
I've listened to every syllable.
No,
you can tell from my face.
What needs to happen is the National Crime Agency needs to go through the Chancellor of the Exchequer's front door and arrest him for stealing family tax credit money that's being siphoned out of the country in shareholders' profit.
Okay.
So it's being duplicated. So who's paying for these workers? The general public are paying.
But the workers are the general public, aren't they?
Exactly.
Right.
So they're being
And
manipulated.
just briefly run me through how...
So it's job share. We haven't got full employment. We've got job share.
Just run me through how things are going to get better after we crash out without any deal.
Well, an EU Remain government legacy with Blair, with Major...
No, but remember when... you know that phrase... I think I can help you a bit.
No.
You know that phrase, no deal is better than a bad deal?
It's not English, sorry.
What's not English,
it's
Mark?
WTO deal. No deal is nonsensical. Is that not true? You can't speak English, can you, James?
No.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you admit it.
Mais je sais. Should we try again?
I'm waiting for you.
Let's do it with you. Okay. How is your life going to get better? What do you do for a living?
I'm a person of leisure.
So you're unemployed?
No, I'm a person of leisure.
So you don't have a job?
Yeah, I do. I do voluntary.
Okay, well, I applaud you for doing that, but you're not in paid work. And you phoned a national radio station to complain about the state offering some support to people who are.
No, they're not. They're chaining them
No,
as
you
slaves.
did. You did.
No, they're chaining them as slaves.
Right.
They're
So who
limiting
pays your
their
bills?
movement.
Who
It's
pays
not
your
freedom
bills?
of movement.
How do you pay your
when
bills?
You're in receipt of family tax credit.
So how's... No, scratch all that. No, carry on. How is your life going to get better?
My children will be in an environment that is beneficial and not hostile.
To whom?
To my children.
How is
It's a
the
hostile
current environment
this
hostile?
government's created.
Are they immigrants?
My children,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're talking about Theresa May's hostile environment at the Home Office?
I'm talking about the EU hostile environment. The government
So how
is
does
a
that
member
work?
of the EU Union.
What's going to improve...
We haven't got a British government. We've got an EU directive.
Okay, so how will your children be measurably better off, do you think? Not just in terms of money, but just in terms of, you know...
safety.
Intangible safety. They'll be safer.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Just briefly, how? Because I'd love to believe you.
Well, what elements do you think they're not safe?
No, I don't think they're unsafe, mate. You do.
Why don't you think they're unsafe?
Because I don't know what you think the evidence is for their lack of safety.
Manchester Stadium blown up.
Right.
Yeah, a stadium in Manchester.
How will not being in the European Union have prevented that?
How would not?
Yeah.
I think you're being really, really daft.
I accept that, Mark, but how would not being in the European Union have stopped the terror attack at the Manchester Arena?
We would be able to get to the crux that non-Muslim terminology is a racist slur on British society.
So which European Union countries are Muslim?
It cuts across all fields of society.
Okay, Mark.
Can
I ask you just once more? How would not being in the European Union have prevented the atrocity in Manchester?
You're playing semantics.
No, I'm asking you a really simple question. You told me your children will be more safe. Let's just run through it. Just pause it a second, mate. You said your children will be more safe if we leave. I said how, and you talked about the Manchester terror attack. So how will not be in the European? Yes.
We would be able to challenge the Kaaba. We should be able to cordon Saudi Arabia. We should boycott
I'm going to leave it now, Mark. I'm going to leave it, mate. I'm going to wish you all the best. And I'm also going to say, if you're sitting at home thinking that a no-deal Brexit is a good idea and you're laughing at Mark or claiming that he's been deliberately selected, he had at least the guts to ring in and defend his position. You don't. You're just believing what you're being spoon-fed by the snake oil salesman who led the country into this catastrophic state, and you're letting them serve you pudding. I'm short of time, Matthew. I'll warn you in advance in Harpenden, but you're going to have the last word on this before we move on. What's it going to be?
Yeah, it's sort of what you've touched on quickly, is that the trade deals that the UK could impose temporarily.
You can't impose a trade deal.
Well, I mean, like sort of like tariffs.
You can negotiate a trade. You can negotiate.
Yeah, negotiate tariffs, etc., etc.
But if it's got tariffs, it's not a free trade agreement.
Right, no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is the first couple of years, it doesn't have, however long it takes, it's a very small. But
I don't know. If you're talking about tariffs, you're not talking about free trade agreements. We just need to clarify that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say. So with tariffs that will be imposed both sides of the channel with regards to trading with Europe,
as soon as you impose one tariff with one country under WTO terms, you have to apply it to every country on the planet.
Yeah, but this is going to be a temporary measure until trade agreements are worked out. And what you've just mentioned about India since 2007...
Trade agreements with whom?
With as many countries who we choose to trade with.
We've got about 80.
At the moment, we are... Sorry?
We've got about 80, 20 in the pipeline.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that we can put the throttle down and then work out some more trade with other countries.
Which countries? Apart from the 80 that we've already got trade agreements with, because we're tearing those up.
I don't know how many countries are in the world, but there's well over 150, 160 countries in the world. So we're not even dealing with half of them.
What's top of your wish list?
Would be top of my wish list? I don't know. Maybe something like Canada. We could work with.
Canada have just signed a trade agreement with the European Union. It took about a decade to negotiate.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. But
how can that be better than what we've currently got, Matthew?
No, but we can work something out. We're the fifth largest economy in the world.
We've got 80 deals already in place and 20 in the pipeline. And we're the fifth largest economy in the world, arguably because of the trading arrangements that we currently enjoy.
What, through Europe? You think that we're the size, we're the economy we are because of Europe?
Well, I know that 60.7% of all our goods imports and 66.9% of all our exports are with the rest of the European Union, yes.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. We could expand so much more so that we don't have to trade so much with Europe. We could trade with so many more other countries.
Yes, the 80 countries outside the European Union that we already have free trade agreements with.
Yeah, and then there's the other side of it as well. Legislations that we have to follow. Our courts can't impose rulings without it being pushed up to European Court of Justice as well. Name
the law you can't wait to not have to obey anymore.
Well, no, there's always things being pushed up into European Court of Justice. Like what's that? I remember, what's that baby that they were trying to fight to keep this baby alive? I've forgotten his name now, but last 2 years ago, but it went to European Court of Justice, and we couldn't. Our own.
So what was the law there
medical
that you didn't
opinion.
like?
Well, it's like certain rights and things that we have to abide by.
What right don't you want anymore?
I'm not a lawyer, James. So what I'm trying to get.
But you're on national radio trying to claim that you've got a basis for what you believe, and I'm asking what the basis is.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is we are, like, for instance, I remember a lot of people remember the 50 watt toasters and light bulbs. We no longer can use that, make these sort of things because of the European Union. Certain things like putting ingredients in jam to make them more, which we made them more flavoursome. We had to stop doing that because of the European Union, etc., etc.
What ingredients? What ingredients in jam? I'm just going to Google that.
It was a colouring in the jam.
How does a colour make something more flavoursome?
Well, no, it was the way it was made, and we were told to change it because it didn't fit with the European Union.
Yes, legislation. They thought it was carcinogenic.
Sorry?
They thought it was carcinogenic, usually, when we look at things that the European Union has sought to influence.
A lot of the stuff that the European Union imposed on us, like our fishing grounds.
See, it was an E number, right? It was an E number. Some of them are approved by the EU and some of them aren't.
Why can't we? If a nation chooses...
No, you're right. Why can't we poison our population? Damn that EU for protecting us from the kind of stuff that unscrupulous producers... Mate, you were eating horse meat 3 years ago, pal. You want to be protected from producers that would put horse meat in your lasagna, or do you want to just remove all the regulations so they can stick whatever you want in your jam or your lasagna or your pot noodles or whatever it is you're having for your tea?